alone. So what I would advise, if I was still in the business, don't get caught up in that. Look at gold and silver as a physical ownership first. Get what you think is appropriate for you and your family. Then, if you have excess risk oriented capital, then look at mining shares and even down the food chain down to these junior stuff and all in all.
Absolutely, and really, you're also helping to educate people. It's like this is so important, and I think the last question I would ask, if it's not too personal, what would you? So I know you're not advising people what to do, but if you had a choice to buy gold or physical gold or silver right now, would there be any weighting? Would you be rather more in gold than silver? What would you think that anything that, what would you do? I mean, forget what other people would do. What would you do?
So I'll tell you what I have done because it's interesting to tell you how bullish I came until last year when I decided that I didn't want any general equities or bonds, and I felt, cash, and then I used most of that cash to buy gold and silver and mining shares and things of that nature. I only used to buy gold and silver or anything related to it for capital appreciation. Hey, I don't care about all this stuff. I don't need it to have bread in case there's an end of war, or get something out of my log cabin in the woods. But now I think you have to take that as part of the reason to own it. You have to treat it as an alternative to paper currency. You have to be concerned, like that Indian farmer, that when the world does hit the mess that we talked about, you're going to want to have that. Your paper's not going to be the answer. I wouldn't get too much about one versus the other argument. Retail or the individual tends to talk about silver because retail always likes quantity over quality, no matter what it is in anything. They rather buy 10,000 shares of a dollar stock than 1,000 shares of a $10 stock. It's always quantity over quality. So that's why they tend to go to silver, because it's much less in a price. But I think the smartest and fairest thing is to be evenly balanced. When it goes, they're both going to go. And you know what? If one goes up 300% and the other one only goes up 260%, I'll go like this. Okay. So what I would point out is this, and I think this is the reason why there's still negative sentiment when you see the average group that still even takes the time to talk about gold and silver, because they also own mining shares and they also own junior mining shares. And that market has been just a debacle. So their negativism is that their savior should be, if gold would only go up $300, these junior stocks would rise and I can get out of them. It kind of falls onto suppressing what really is a bullish view for gold and silver alone. So what I would advise, if I was still in the business, don't get caught up in that. Look at gold and silver as a physical ownership first. Get what you think is appropriate for you and your family. Then, if you have excess risk oriented capital, then look at mining shares and even down the food chain down to these junior stuff and all in all. But having ownership of gold and silver now is absolute paramount. I think American advisors are doing a disservice for not considering it, and they should own it and hope guys like me and you are wrong. And if we're right, what would be 3 or 5% currently in some crazy technology stocks? Let me put my client in this physical bullion and hope the Andys and Peters of the world are wrong. And if they're right, so be it. If they're wrong, hey, we bought some insurance. We're glad we didn't have to use it.
Absolutely. And if you don't, as you rightly said earlier, so what if you don't need that insurance? You have it, and it's a great comfort to know that you've actually been. I mean, life is like that. You never know what's going to come around the corner. None of us can predict it, and it's always good to have some form of hedge in place, whatever it might be, in life or in money or in anything really. But Peter, I just so have to thank you so much for giving us, your sage advice, your thoughts. They are so much appreciated. I know that people will look to you and say, there's experience, and these are things that that run around our heads all the time. Is it this? What is the dollar doing? This? What should we be doing? Well, what's Peter doing? I think that's really important for people to know. And there it is. It's like going back to, and we've all got grey hair. It's like going to your granddad and saying, "What should I do, granddad?" It's like, to me, it's that kind of a thing. And I think people will look to it and say, "That's a great episode. Thank you very much for coming."
Well, let me also say this then, Andy, as my fee for taking time to speak to you. You know, Milton Berle was one of the most famous comedians worldwide, and one of his fame was is that he stole other guys' comical jokes, changed them a little, whatever, and became a great comedian over it. I knew because of my background and all, I was never going to be the smartest or even close to the smartest guy. But the thing I did learn right away is hang around the smart people. So it has been a pleasure to speak to you again. I can't tell you how valuable you were in the past, and I think you will be extremely valuable in the future because I think you're one of the few voices that has seen through the curtain and looked in the back. And like we saw in The Wizard of Oz, he's not the greatest there, and there's some real unfortunate surprises coming to the world. So I want to just tell you and take the time here because, like you said, I this is just two old friends having a chat again, but it was really worthwhile. And I want to encourage my viewers, the people that still follow me, to make your work part of. And I've enjoyed hearing from you. And I know, please God, we'll have another chance and maybe even to be somewheres where Bill and Chris and you and I can have one last chat at a pub and talk about old Tokyo Rose and wonder where he is today.